Walking these
then introduces you to tracks. You listen to both tracks, and you decide.
lost in a world.
Try again.
Yeah, or you can write any type of music you want. Or you can write your own lyrics. But first of all, it gives you 2 sets of lyrics to choose
Searching for
from. So you look at, okay, like that. Then you choose the kind of style of music you want. So I choose some lyrics, and I put like 10 different styles of music.
in the heart of the blue.
He liked some of it, and I liked some other stuff.
Glorify
I
God.
had some crazy stuff.
I just felt fun.
What does Charlie like?
I don't know, he liked more of the contemporary hip-hop type.
Okay.
Yeah. And I put a contemporary Christian, but
Just
you can tell it's contemporary Christian. It's got that sound that we just like. And so. Well, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to our program as we celebrate St. James at 75 years. And today we've got some great guests, Mike and Jane Cline, and they've been members here for quite some time, and so we're going to get to hear from them. So tell me, what positions have you held here?
You want to go first? You want me to?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We both started on the fellowship committee
Oh,
when early on, before we had when the kitchen was back where the library is now.
oh, okay.
We both started on the fellowship committee, and I've been director 3.5 terms or 4.5 terms. I don't remember which.
And those are 2-year terms, right?
Yeah. John Slattengren was the director. I was the assistant, and he moved, and so I finished out 1 term, and then off and on over the years served there. We both taught. We taught together. What was it, 5th and 6th grade? Back in the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cold days, we turned the oven on to get a little heat in the room. And then she's taught little kids. I've taught high school.
Oh, okay.
And adult classes occasionally.
Yeah, I haven't held any positions in the, like head of this or but I've been on numerous committees. Phil Roselle, our previous youth pastor, had a way of just getting you into things. All of a sudden, you're like on it, and he was very talented that way. And so, like we were teaching the middle school kids when we had absolutely no idea what we were doing.
We hadn't had
middle school kids,
yet.
And he put us with middle school. And so he talked about being in the kitchen, and so like we would bring cinnamon rolls.
We were literally teaching.
We were in the kitchen.
That's where the class.
No,
that's where the class.
No, we were in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then we figured, well, since we really don't know how to deal with these kids, we'll feed them. And so we learned along with them, and that was kind of fun. We learned the lessons along with them, and we kind of learned about that age group before we had to deal with it with our own kids. So that was good. We've both been readers. I don't think we've been a greeter. That's one thing we haven't done. But
been an usher, a server, once upon a time, and a server again in the choir for several years when Linda Kretzinger was here.
Yeah. And you've also taught the CPR classes.
Oh yeah, I did. Like certifying people in CPR and the use of the AED and
the AED. Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
I couldn't remember what it was. The AED.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I took that class. I enjoyed it very much, so.
I hope to do one soon again.
Oh, yeah, good. So, how did you guys come to St. James? Where'd you come from? Why'd you come here?
I'm going to defer to Jane because our dates don't match, and I trust hers. Okay. I trust hers more.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we came in 1989.
Oh.
And so what is that, 30-some years? Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that is because you kind of know when your kids were born. And our second was in a program called Mommy and Me.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I discovered the building. Like, I really didn't know anything about the Lutheran Church. I grew up in a Irish Catholic community, went to Catholic schools. And And then I married Mike, whose background was Wesleyan. And so when we started having kids, it was kind of like a crisis for us. We were like, what are we going to do? And so he was not going to the Wesleyan church, but I was going to the Catholic church. And I read somewhere where if you go to church with your kids by yourself, without your spouse, whether it's husband or wife or whatever, the chances of your kids becoming becoming active in church is pretty low. If you go together, it went way up. So that kind of motivated me to kind of look around and say, we've got to come to a meeting of the minds. So we decided to go to churches and just look around. And so we thought we'd go to all these churches and have, discussion, compare and contrast.
Give the churches tryouts.
Yeah, it's kind of obnoxious. And we started here because it was in the neighborhood and I knew where the building was. And and we both left feeling so at home. And we never went to another church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, and there were a lot of things that I had to work through. But I think the bottom line for me was coming from a Catholic church, my relationship with Jesus Christ was not going to change.
Right.
And there were things about the Catholic church I wasn't real fond of. There were things about the Lutheran church I wasn't really fond of. And I knew that you just have to kind of work within those.
Right.
So we've been very happy here.
Well, good.
And,
I remember how welcoming people were. And they used to do it Tuesday night visitations, remember?
mm-hmm.
Oh.
And, knock on the door. There were three full. Edna Cardwell. I forget the other adult. It might have been Jean Bogue.
It was.
It was Jean Bogue. Mm-hmm. And they had Gary Starr, a kid,
wow,
with them. Now, granted, there's a connection between Edna and Gary, but they got a kid to come with them. Wow. And that said something to me.
Yeah. That makes a difference. Wow. That's interesting because Niall and them told a similar story about Pastor Carlson and Joanne Stoner showing up. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, for you as Roman Catholic, the liturgy is there.
Yeah, and that was something that I really liked. I also liked the fact that there was going to be communion every week.
Oh, okay.
And so that was something I was used to, and I really felt comfortable with that.
That's interesting, because if you would have went to most Missouri Synod churches, you wouldn't have found that at that time, because most Missouri Synod churches do it like twice a month or something like that.
Okay.
Really?
This is the first congregation I've been in that does it every Sunday.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I think you'd have a revolt if you ever tried to change that.
Oh, I would never try to change it. Yeah.
I grew up Wesleyan Methodist, then they merged and we had it, I think, maybe quarterly, and it was grape juice, and I think it was actual matzah, I'm not sure, but I remember the grape juice and then he never was explained as well as it was here.
Oh, okay.
And learning about how Lutherans believe and the faith and all that, mercy and grace were never a big part of my church growing up.
Oh, okay.
It was always, straight and narrow. You backslide, you're back to square one.
Oh.
Maybe they didn't mean it that way, but that was in my head. And in here, there's grace and mercy, and we didn't do absolution and confession.
Right.
And, we did a lot of confessing.
Confessing, no absolution.
Altar calls and stuff, but anyway.
Now, who was the pastor here when you joined?
Mark Carlson.
Okay. I don't know the years of people who went.
Yeah, he was still fairly early on in his ministry here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what are some people here at St. James that have had an impact on you in a positive way, hopefully?
Well, I would scratch those names up.
I was thinking about this question, and this was a really meaningful question to me, because I I think you see people coming here that you know have been through a lot of stuff. They've been beaten up by life, and they've lost spouses, they've lost children, they've lost jobs, they've failed spectacularly, and they're still coming. They're coming. They've got oxygen tubing. They just show up, and I don't think they know how much that means to people like me. And it means a lot. I don't even have to have a conversation with them. I can just see them in a pew and say, wow.
Yeah.
Those are my people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to name a couple names. One is Bill Pritchett. And I get choked up about Bill. I knew him from the newspaper, and from buying insurance from his insurance company. So I knew him a little bit, knew about him. He had run campaigns for one of our former mayors. And so I knew a little bit about him, knew him well enough, but really got to know him here. And the life change that he had from the Pritch of Once Upon a Time to the Pritch he was at St. James was amazing. He was kind of like my big faith brother.
Oh, wow.
Here. And another was Phil Roselle. He was A, a good role model, B, he understood he understood the world we live in.
Oh, sure.
I mean, he was just an excellent teacher. He could explain things, and he wouldn't judge you. I mean, he had the coach in him, like, Cline, come on, you moron, this is the way it is. But he taught it well, and he made sure you got it. He was a wonderful teacher.
I've heard good things about him.
Yeah.
Phil was very special.
And like there's so many others, Paul and Della Lang and Linda Kretzinger in the choir, and a couple of generations of the McClures, Grandma McClure, and then Dwayne and Dottie, and
Dave Lerner.
And Dave Lerner, yeah. And Dave Lerner truly, literally, was a clown.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I mean, he would go do, I mean, that was part of his own little mission outreach. And he was good at it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So, and I know I've probably left some out. Sorry, folks. Hope you know who you are. But there are just so many, and you see, they show up. They're here. They're not. They may be rattled, but they're not broken. They keep showing up.
Yeah. The attendance here is, I mean, for people is pretty consistent for the most part. So it's been good. So, what are some events that stand out in your mind? Funny things, or anecdotes, or just stories?
Well, this goes back to terms as the director. And I don't know if this is really in chronological order or not, but Pastor Carlson left, and so we had search committees and doing all that. And it was time, it was sad, but it was time to close the preschool and the daycare. That was painful because it was, I mean, our kids went there. It was painful, but it was just because of circumstances. It just was time and building, and also building the new addition. Right. Dealing with that. That was interesting, and that was in its own way kind of fun. Yeah. And the Bible study groups. We used to have a Wednesday night Bible study group of young adults, and Pastor Carlson would teach. Joe Chambers taught some stuff, and it was just a gathering of folks. And mostly young, I actually use the word young. young parents, and we got it, and it was great. It was A, good Bible study, B, a very good support group. This church is in itself a very good support group.
Yeah, that's very true. I've noticed that.
And we were all about the same stage of parenting, so we kind of like, we would plan events together. We went on a lot of camping trips in the summer, where there was fun for the adults, but there was also fun for the kids. And so you didn't feel like you were having to choose between, having fun with your spouse and having fun with your kids. You could do it together, and that was really special. And so there was a lot of crazy things that happened back then. And so you grew these friendships that probably wouldn't have known a lot of these people had it not been for this church. I remember one day, Dave Heron's office, his chiropractic office, got broken into on a weekend. Like someone broke into it.
Vandalism.
The door was, down, and they were out of town. And I don't remember how we found out, but all of a sudden there were like 3 guys at his office fixing it up for him, and it was just that sort of thing.
We missed
happened.
church that morning.
Yeah.
But we were cleaning out his office and straightening it up.
But it was taking care of people, and I had always been in a large, like church body. I'd never been in a small one, and so that was a real pleasant experience to experience that for the first time, because when you're in a big church, you don't get some of those relationships, and so that was really nice.
Yeah, once you get past a couple hundred people, it's kind of hard to have that intimate, because nobody knows one another. You start your first service, your second service,
Right. Yeah.
And I got playing ball, softball, church league softball, and basketball for almost maybe a little better than 20 years on church teams. I mean, we still take our baseball trips together, and that happened because of the church. Had a team, and we just had this core, and we're a new set of brothers.
Right. So you guys played, competitive baseball and basketball?
Softball.
Softball.
Yeah, there were leagues. We got our share of trophies, but we had more fun.
Sure. Now, were you president when they paid off the mortgage?
No.
Oh, because you're in the picture out there.
Yeah, they had all the past
gotcha.
directors up there. That was either Norm or Jerry, and I don't remember.
Maybe it was Jerry. Maybe Jerry said that.
It was either Norm or Jerry who was director then. But I think, there was me and Joe Chambers and Norm Wolf and Jerry Whitten.
Okay.
I don't know if Dave... Anyway, but I wasn't then. I was when we incurred the debt.
Right. So was that the paying off of the mortgage of this building or that building or both?
Well, I'm going to say for 100% certain I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was that.
Oh, okay.
We're not money people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that conversation with Jerry. It's pretty miraculous when a church pays off its debt, because most churches never do. I mean, a lot of churches I've been in, for them to owe $600,000 and be paying on that forever is pretty common. And so I came and was like, you guys have no debt, or at least no mortgage debt. That's pretty outstanding.
That was a happy time.
Yeah. Are there significant changes that you guys have seen happen over the time you've been here in the church and in various things?
I think, the changes that we see are also changes in the community. The community's getting older, and you don't have the young families moving in for, employment like we did back in the, 70s or whatever. So I think that we're kind of a reflection of what's going on in the community. And, we have some young families, but nothing like we did before.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's hard to see.
it is. It is.
But it's kind of a plus because we're getting a few more younger families. There was a time during pastoral changes before you came. Between the time when Pastor Carlson left and when you came, we had a dip
Oh, okay.
in attendance, and now I think it's not. I think I don't know what the numbers are, but it seems like it may be rising.
It
If-
is.
If it's not the actual attendance number that's rising, the attitude is rising. We smile a lot more than we used to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the numbers have gone up, and it's been kind of surprising to me because I can't figure it out. I mean, people are just walking in the door, and because they move in or they just say, well, I'm looking for this. And yeah, I mean, we just had some new musical people come in, and with Phil and stuff like that, it's been a real blessing. So it's been positive. So yeah, it does look hopeful.
It does.
It does.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Any other things? Or?
What should we have thought of?
I don't know.
Well, I'll get to some of that later. But how has St. James impacted your faith?
Well, it taught me, and I jumped in if you were, I'm sorry. It taught me about grace and mercy. It taught me about forgiveness. I mean, we didn't get absolution every week. It just, I don't know. It about faith and grace and mercy. And this is with Phil and with several of our pastors, you included, being able to ask questions that not questions of doubt, but questions of why,
Right.
or because why. Those things for me have helped here, and it's welcoming.
Yeah.
I touched on this before, but just experiencing a family of believers in a very intimate way that's what St. James has done for me, because life knocks you down and things happen, and there's always someone that's been through it or that just says the right thing at the right time, and that's been a real lovely thing for me to experience.
Yeah. This is good. So what are some hopes and goals you have for St. James in the future?
That, well, we talked about it, that we get more young folks, kids, young people, whether they're couples or not, young people, that we keep growing the numbers, and that we just keep the attitude of faith that we have now. What we have now, keep it going.
What was the question again? What I hope for St. James?
Yeah, what are, if you had goals or ideals or things you would like to see St. James do or achieve?
When I look at, what I hope for St. James, it's not what I hope for the building or, the reputation. It's more of the impact that each of us have on our little circle, that, it doesn't matter if we're growing as a church, if someone is out there doing something that reflects badly on their walk with Christ, that's going to, ruin it.
Right.
And so I guess I hope all of us can pay it forward and in some way make our little world a little better
Right.
and reflect on and have that reflect back on our church. And whether that means we grow or we don't grow, as long as we're having an impact. Like those people I mentioned, they had an impact on me. And I hope, I look at Joe Chambers, the way he runs his life, you can't help but know that he's a follower of Christ.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't like slam it on you. It's just his gentle way of being in the world. And I just hope that we're all kind of like that.
Yeah. Joe's interesting because my kids don't attach themselves to many adults except for Joe. They like Joe, and they've actually spent the night with Joe when Dara and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Yeah.
They spent the night with Joe, and they had no complaints.
That's cool.
And he maintains contact with all of the past youth. He does. It makes point of that.
He's a neat guy.
So what are some questions I should have asked you that I didn't, or that you'd like me to ask you? That comes from you, by the way. Mike told me to ask that question.
Well, I don't know.
Well, you gotta do better than that. You should have told me to ask the question.
I didn't say I'd have an answer. Let's see. It's kind of going back to a mix of a few other questions, but I just saw Janice walk by there.
Oh, yeah.
And people like her,
Oh, yeah.
who don't have to do this, she's getting paid, but she
Not
could
near
be,
enough.
bingo. I mean, she could be doing what she does or something for more money, but she does it here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Pastor Phil, who's
Yeah.
theoretically retired,
Yeah. Yeah.
he could be doing whatever he wanted in retirement, but he's here
Yeah.
and he's serving with us. That kind of, and Elda and the people who do funeral dinners and the fellowship who set all that up.
Yeah.
And I was impressed. We did this strategic plan not long ago. And thinking back on other strategic plan things that I had to sit through, this was probably one of the most positive ones I remember.
Oh.
Wasn't, well, no, we can't do it that way. We've never done it.
Yeah.
Or this just, and it was honest converse. It was what you'd like to think a church does.
Right. Yeah. And I would follow up on that by kind of repeating what I did in the last interview, that when Dara and I got here, one of the things that at least surprised me, and probably her too, was how much stuff was going on here, but not just that, but how much stuff was lay-led going on here. And that, I joked, well, I don't know what the pastor's even supposed to do around here, because the members are doing, and that, we go to committee meetings and the people just pray. They don't look to me all the time to pray. And so there does seem to be this outlook of, all churches, particularly Lutherans, tend to get, we've never done it this way before, but this church seems to have a lot less of that. There seems to be a willingness to do something outside the box. What about you?
I just appreciate the humility I find in this church. No one takes themselves real seriously. There's just a humility that is very attractive. Honesty and humility. None of us are perfect.
No.
And so I like that about St. James.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what's the biggest surprise or whatever? What was the biggest thing that's hit you about St. James?
I think how nice people were.
And how many churches have you been at that plan to celebrate 75 years?
Well, my last one did 85.
Okay.
But I wasn't there for that. And the two churches I had before that, they were only about 20 years old.
Mhm.
So they were, the one in Fort Wayne, I was the second pastor of associate, and it was a growing congregation. The last one was just a mission start that, we were under 20 years old.
I'm just
So,
curious.
Yeah. This one is what's interesting about it is that most congregations have the lifetime of a human being.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so you kind of have to at some point start reinventing yourself a little bit.
I did not
And
know
I think
that.
we're at that stage where it's like, okay, now we have to look at what we're doing, and is it matching up to what our community needs done?
Mhm.
And are we reaching a group of people today that maybe couldn't be reached in the way they were reached in the 50s and 60s?
Mhm.
And so that's whether it's new technology, whether it's asking new questions, and just reading a book called Failure of Nerve. It's a leadership book by a Jewish rabbi, Friedman. He died back in 96, so he wrote the book quite. But that's the question. He says, it's not having the right answers, it's having the right questions.
Mhm.
And then figuring out but he says you can't do anything until you get the right questions. And so I think that's what we need to be asking is the right questions.
Is what you would be
Yeah,
asking.
what we should be asking, because, I have 19-year-olds, and adopting kids at 40 was a trip. It was like God hit the reset button and said, okay, let's try something totally different. And but communicating with them is sometimes like communicating with space aliens. I mean, because they just go, isn't that funny? I go, I don't even get what the point of the joke was, and so it's like, that's why I kind of know that we need younger people to communicate with those younger people, because I don't even know the questions they're asking. I mean, I really don't,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, but
Mhm.
yeah. So I think that, look at the next 75 years, it's time for us that are older to start looking at the younger, but developing them so they can take it over, but realizing they're probably going to do it totally different than we did.
Yeah.
And being okay with that.
And be okay with it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, your role in the Nativity Walk, our 6-year-old grandson, you scared the snot out of him.
Oh, is that what he was talking about the other day?
It was,
He
but
talking to me about that. I couldn't think what he was talking
it
about.
was great because he told about going through, and he was sitting down. He explained that he was sitting down, and you barked something,
Oh yeah.
and he says, "I almost fell off my seat. I did this," and it was great. I mean, so that kind of stuff. You get little kids paying attention.
I have to admit, I probably enjoy that role way too much. I'm the only king around here,
Method acting. But that's doing stuff that people pay attention to.
Well, anything else?
I think we've done enough damage.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for
I
having us.
appreciate the interview, guys.
Yep.
And we will see you next week with a different couple. Peace out. I
Walking
never named the couple.
these streets,
Because I'm assuming, I'm interviewing
Lost in a
Aaron's
world.
but with editing and how that's going to go.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
echoes
like,
call,
okay, we'll see. And there's one past podcast
Searching
that's called
for
Night Leadership,
voices true.
and Christchurch,
St. James
and he does.
Church
I think
in the heart of
and he puts out like 2 a week, and they're like how long. It's all leadership development. It's all diversity. And but I noticed early on that he's filming this. He even says that.
Oh, get them in the can.
Yeah, and that way he has people on. Yeah, it's kind of he does that, so you never know. He never says who's coming up, but if he does, he say, "Oh, someone's going to get me on at some point." I got to come on.
Later.
Or you just say, well, next time we'll see who walks through the door and we'll talk to them.
feeling
So what are you
Kinda like
using
Fred
these
Allen.
for? They're coming-
These are put up on YouTube. They put the
With
first, but they're also, I put them on
heavily
YouTube.
edited.
No, actually, no, I put them on YouTube and then I get put on the Facebook page. And then she mails them out to everybody. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Just like the other videos were. But they're basically just going through most of the membership and their thoughts instead of different with Jerry and Isla's, all I entered was as we got into the
Turn off now.